ListenLayer provides the most powerful, easiest, and scalable way to track form submissions across your website. Let's take a look at how easy this is. The first step in ListenLayer is to ensure that your domain name is properly defined. And then grab your tracking code, go to Google Tag Manager, and create a new tag. You can see we've placed our ListenLayer tag here. We've chosen to use the custom HTML tag type, and we're triggering this on all pages. You can then publish your Google Tag Manager changes or simply preview them. Now, jumping back to ListenLayer, we're going to look at the listener library. We're going to search for Gravity Forms, a common form submission tool that we use across our website. Once this is enabled, we're going to jump to Features and look at Form Activity. In this case, we're just going to track simple form submissions. So we're going to turn that feature on. And just to help debug, we're also going to turn on form loads. Now, jumping to our event settings section, what we'll notice is that we have two events that are now turned on: GF form loaded and GF form submitted. Every single time a Gravity Forms loads on the page, this event is going to be pushed into the data layer by the listener, and it'll include structured information about that form. In addition, anytime a form is submitted, this event will be used. Traditionally, marketers will redirect users to a thank you page to track form submissions. This can create a subpar user experience, generate inaccurate data, and generally does not give the marketer flexibility to enhance their data. So instead of using thank you pages, we're going to be targeting this event called GF form submitted in the data layer. So let's publish our changes. And then we'll take a look at our website. Now, looking at our website, because we published our changes, I'd recommend running a quick hard refresh. And then we're going to jump to a page that we know has some Gravity Forms on it. In this case, we have two Gravity Forms on our test page. And you can see in the console that ListenLayer has pushed data, making it visible in the console, that mirrors the data that they push into the data layer. You can see there's an event called GF form loaded, and this appears twice because there's two different forms on our page. There's Gravity Form ID 2 and Gravity Form ID 4. Now, if we take a look at our preview inside of Google Tag Manager, you can see these events, which are being pushed into the data layer, are also being read by Google Tag Manager. Let's go ahead and submit one of our test forms. In this case, you can see we did not redirect the user to a thank you page. But in our console, we have an event now called GF form submitted. And in Google Tag Manager, we have an event called GF form submitted. This is the same event that we looked at over here. So if we want to track all of our form submissions simply across the entire website, all we need to do is target this event and use it as a trigger inside of Google Tag Manager, and then assign that to any of the tags we want to fire when a form is submitted. So let's go ahead and copy the name of this event, and we're going to jump into Google Tag Manager and navigate to triggers. We're going to create a new trigger, and we're going to call this trigger all Gravity Form submissions. We're going to choose the custom event type, and we're simply going to paste the name of our custom event in the field and save. And now to test this, we're going to go ahead and create a test tag. Now, this test tag is essentially the same thing as a conversion tag. So you may want to send an event to Google Analytics 4 or even Universal Analytics. You might also want to send a conversion to Google Ads or LinkedIn ads or Facebook ads. Using this single trigger that we just created, you can fire events across all of your marketing data platforms. In this case, let's just create a test tag because it'll allow us to easily see what's going on when we test our setup. We're going to create an empty script tag, and we're going to fire this on all Gravity Forms submissions. We're going to go ahead and save this. And then we're going to refresh our preview. Let's make sure our connection is complete. And it looks like it is. And again, we're going to navigate to our Gravity Forms. We'll see our GF form loaded. And now we're going to resubmit that same form submission. What we should see is when this event is pushed into the data layer, our test tag is now firing through Google Tag Manager. Essentially, Listen Layer automatically detected the form activity, pushed this event into the data layer. Google Tag Manager read that information and used the rules that we wrote to fire this particular conversion tag. Again, we could create as many conversion tags as we'd like across various marketing platforms and fire those on all form submissions. And you can add as many forms to your website as you'd like, and they will all perfectly track under this method. Now, in this case, all we did was focus on the event name and creating a trigger rule based on that event name. But notice that Listen Layer also pushes a lot of information into that data layer. All of this can be captured inside of Google Tag Manager and sent to your marketing data platforms, or can be used to modify triggers or collect additional information. For example, let's say we want to grab the form ID anytime a form is submitted. We want to make this a variable inside of Google Tag Manager so that we can send it to a tool like Google Analytics with all of our form submissions. So what we're going to do is in our console, we're going to find the form ID and right click on it and click Copy Property Path. Then in Google Tag Manager, we can simply jump to variables, create a new variable. And we're going to choose the type data layer variable because this is coming from our data layer. We're going to paste the path that we copied from the console in this field. And then we're going to name this. Now, this will become a variable inside of Google Tag Manager that we can now use to either modify our triggers or to send into our marketing platforms. So let's refresh our preview again, and we'll take a look at what this does. So again, we'll navigate to Gravity Forms. And let's go ahead and submit our information. And now what we'll see with our GF form submitted event is that in our variables tab, Google Tag Manager has captured the value of the form ID and placed it here. And so inside of Google Tag Manager now, we could, for example, modify our trigger. If we only want this to fire on some occasions, perhaps we only want to do that when the form ID contains 2 or equals the full value of that form ID. And that would then allow us to use this trigger in a more limited fashion. However, a more powerful way to use this would be to take that information and actually pass it through a tag into one of our marketing platforms. So let's say we have an event tag with Google Analytics, and we're tracking form submissions, but we would like to pass the form ID into the label. we can simply grab form ID and place that inside of Google Tag Manager. Then every time form is submitted, this information is going to be sent in with the event into Google Analytics. Now, we're just barely scratching the surface of the possibilities with Listen Layer. As you can see, all of the information from the form submission is available as variables inside of the data layer. Jumping back to Listen Layer, we can use features such as browser storage to capture that information and save it in the browser so that it persists at different lengths and in different ways. We can write rules to actually push additional custom values into the data layer based on user characteristics or activity. And then we can capture those in our marketing platforms. However, at its very basic level, we can simply create a trigger to target this event name and track all of our form submissions across our entire website. No more thank you pages, no more custom events. And once you're freed up from those things, you can focus on enhancing your tracking using other variables and powerful features from inside of Listen Layer.